there's this thing called time. Okay? You have a past, a present, and a future. Now, if we reach the present moment now, that means that we have already traversed all the past moments of time. Okay? The problem is, if time is eternal, if the universe is eternal, there would have to be an infinite, a non-limited number of moments in the past. But so to reach the present moment now, you would have to traverse or pass through an actual infinite number of moments to reach the present moment now. Okay? But it's impossible to traverse an actual infinite set of moments. Because no matter how many moments you would have traversed, there'd still be an infinite number more to go. Now, I don't want to get off into Zeno's paradoxes, but if you know, if you had a philosophy course, they talked about Zeno's paradoxes. Zeno thought he was proving more than he actually was proving, but he did prove the impossibility of traversing an actual infinite set of finite points. So, since we have reached the present moment now, the number of past moments is a finite, limited number. There had to be a first moment in time. Time was created. By the way, proponents of the Big Bang model acknowledge that space, time, and matter/energy had a beginning at that initial second of the Big Bang. Okay, so basically you can argue that time had to have a beginning, and just to reach the present moment now, we've reached the present moment now, therefore there had to be only a limited number of moments in the past. There had to be a first moment, therefore the universe had a beginning. Well, whatever has a beginning needs a cause. Okay? Now, I was talking to a gentleman yesterday. I don't even know if he's here right now, but a gentleman who was not a Christian, and we were talking last night, and he thought what I was saying was that everything has to have a cause. Well, no knowledgeable Christian argues that way. Christian philosophers throughout the centuries don't argue that way. We don't argue that everything needs a cause. We argue that everything that has a beginning needs a cause. So eventually you have to arrive at something that is totally uncaused, the uncaused cause of all else that exists. Okay? So everything that has a beginning has to have a cause. It couldn't cause itself to exist. It couldn't be self-caused, because then it would have to pre-exist its own existence in order to bring its own existence about. That's absurd. Okay? It couldn't pop into existence out of nothing. Nothing doesn't have the power to create. See, in order to have potential to do something, you've got to be something actual. Only actual things have potential. If you're not actually anything, you have no potential because there's nothing there to have potential. Okay? So nothing doesn't have the power to do anything. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about nothing. Okay? And so this is what's great about being a philosopher. Scientists have to talk about something. Okay? Well, maybe with the exception of Dawkins, but sometimes he doesn't talk at all, like that video clip. But whatever the case, if you're a philosopher, sometimes they pay you to talk about nothing, and so I think it's a great deal. But whatever the case, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about nothing, and it's interesting. That's how what's the marks off a good philosopher. A good philosopher can talk all day about nothing, and but nothing. This is profound. This is some of the most profound stuff I've ever said. So if you're taking notes, get ready with your pens right now. Nothing is nothing. Okay, there's a few oohs and ahs on that. Okay, nothing is nothing. Okay, I know that's hard to believe, but face it. You know, nothing is nothing. Therefore, nothing can do nothing. Therefore, nothing can cause nothing. If the universe had a beginning, since whatever has a beginning needs a cause, something else, something apart from the universe had to cause it to come into existence. Now, the universe is all that nature is. So whenever you find natural causes, where do you find them? In nature, in the universe. So if all of nature needs a cause, by definition, the cause of the universe must be supernatural. Okay? Now, a lot of people act like, well, that's not good science. Science only accepts natural causes. No. No. That's a total misunderstanding of science held by many scientists today because they're indoctrinated in that. Scientists are supposed to study nature and then find causes. But if the causes end up being supernatural causes, so be it. But to say that we will only accept natural causes is not science. That's scientism. That's a religion of atheistic materialism that's forced on the data. It's not something we receive from the evidence itself. So right now the debate between Christians and atheists is that we're supposed to be the guys with all the blind faith because we believe in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, yet the brilliant people of our day are really teaching in the beginning nothing created the heavens and the earth. Now you tell me what is more reasonable, okay? I believe that in the beginning a miracle-working God had the power to create the universe and did so. Nothing has no power. I had some Japanese students that were Buddhists that came to King's West, the Christian high school that I taught at, and I asked them, well, how did everything get here? And they talked to each other, and then their spokeslady said, Big Bang. She said, everything got here through the Big Bang. And I said, well, how did the Big Bang come about? And then they talked with each other, and one of them said, it's a miracle? And I said, no. I said, nothing can't do miracles. I believe in a miracle-working God. Miracles are okay with me. But you can't have a miracle-working nothing, okay? And I pointed to the weight room. I said, I lift weights. I have the power to lift weights, but I don't have the power to make everything. Nothing doesn't have the power to lift weights. Yet you say nothing made everything? We're being lied to. Either in the beginning God or in the beginning nothing. They didn't call me a fool, but I know too much about nothing. Okay, then the continuing existence of the universe. This is Thomas Aquinas' third way to argue. He had 5 ways to argue for God's existence. This is his third way. I like it. You either get it or you don't, but it's two ways of saying it. Basically, one way of saying this is that dependent things exist. Okay? Like, for instance, I'm a dependent being. I depend on air, on water, on food for my continuing existence. Okay? I knew guys in New Jersey, they're in their mid-30s, and they still depended on their mother for their continuing existence, living in the basement and all. But if everything that exists is a dependent being, then when you put them all together, you get one big, giant dependent being. The only way to ground the existence of all dependent existence is to have a totally independent being. Okay? That's one way to argue for this. The way that I like is a little bit more abstract, but if everything that exists has the possibility of non-existence, then given enough time in the future, given enough time, every possibility will be actualized. Every possible scenario will obtain. So that the scenario where everything with the possibility of non-existence will not exist will come about. So given enough time, if everything that exists has the possibility to not exist, given enough time in the future, eventually nothing will exist. But then there's a problem, says Thomas Aquinas, because then if you go backwards in time, that same scenario would have obtained if you go back and back into the past where nothing would have existed. But since from nothing, nothing comes, something has to be eternal, with no beginning and no end, and no possibility of non-existence, what philosophers call a necessary being, and that would ground the continuing existence of all the possible beings. that exist. So this is an argument for God not as the cause of the beginning of our existence like the last argument was. This is an argument for the cause of our continuing existence. This is an argument for God as the one who sustains us in existence. So something has to be eternal and have no possibility of non-existence. By the way, if there's some of these arguments that you don't get, don't worry about it. You don't have, your neighbor's probably not going to give you, 6 hours to talk all of these. Find 4 or 5 that you really feel comfortable with, okay? If you master like 13 or 14, then you can find out, okay, which 4 or 5 might speak to my neighbor, because they might not like a few of these and others they would like. The design and order in the universe. We've had, some brilliant scientists up here giving you all evidence for the intricate design, like the complexity of the human eye and things of that sort that could not get here by chance. Okay? If I was, if I was up here eating cereal on a stage, I talked about this on the radio yesterday, and if I was eating alphabet cereal, now how many people here are Seahawk fans? Raise your hands. Oh, good. Things are getting better. There's a very small percentage. Good. Because I'm a Raider fan, and I feel the love in this room, so I could admit that, even though they only won 2 games last year. And but if I was having cereal there, and then I got up and walked away, and Chris came up, and he saw by my cereal bowl where it said Raiders rule outside the bowl, okay? He's not going to say, how about that? It's amazing that the cereal just fell out of the box and it just spelled out Raiders rule. No, he's going to know. Fernandez is a Raider fan, and he spelled that out. And even if I deny it, he's going to know I'm lying or somebody else did it, because Raiders rule is enough to tell us. I don't care if your name is Carl Sagan. Raiders rule. Now, of course, after last year, you might say, okay, well, that's not really a good example of intelligence, but whatever the case, but Raiders rule, that would be enough for Carl Sagan to immediately know intelligent design. But when that intelligent design points towards God, that's when he starts thinking differently and inconsistently. See, a single-celled animal contains enough genetic information to fill 20,000 volumes of encyclopedia. You'll get that from the world's leading atheist scientists. By the way, those numbers seem to go up every few years as they learn more and more about the genetic information of a single-celled animal. Sometimes we'll say enough to fill 1,000 complete sets of encyclopedia. Well, encyclopedia usually has about 20 volumes, okay? Almost one for each letter of the alphabet. X and Y you can put in one, that type of thing. And so that's about 20,000 volumes of encyclopedia. You can't get that amount of information. The illustration often given is how many random explosions would it take in a print shop before out would pop a Webster's dictionary. It's not going to happen. It takes intelligent design. The Big Bang model. Now, evolutionists are getting away from the Big Bang as an explosion, and they're talking about it more as inflation. There's a good reason for that. Because when evolutionists try to act like there was this big explosion, there was absolutely nothing, and then all of a sudden, somehow, there was this big explosion that produced all the order and complexity we have in the world today. And as we move forward in time, that explosion is still producing more order and more complexity. That's not a scientific statement. We've had plenty of explosions that we were able to examine the effects of those explosions. I remember the Oklahoma City bombing, okay? The Oklahoma City building started out orderly and complex, and then it was nothing but chaos and disorder after the explosion. Explosions take things from a state of order and complexity to a state of disorder and chaos, okay? So the idea that they could just appeal to the Big Bang just doesn't work. Dr. Hoyle and Dr. Wickramasinghe, 2 of Great Britain's leading evolutionists, two of the greatest scientists